Build. This is the Reverend Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Dios lo bendiga. Este es Reverendo Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Welcoming you to another broadcast. At this hour, we have our bilingual broadcast, our teaching in English and Spanish. So we ask that you be patient as we translate live on the fly between languages. Esta es la hora que damos la enseñanza en inglés y español y pedimos que tengas pues paciencia mientras que traduzcamos de un idioma al otro. Aproveche y aprende el otro idioma. While we're at it, you can learn the other language as well. Es un beneficio de sintonizarse con nuestro ministerio. It's a benefit, an added benefit, I should add, of tuning in to our ministry. God bless you all. Welcome. Dios le bendiga a todos y bienvenido a la clase de hoy, el último clase antes del verano, del descanso de veranal sería. All right, this is the last class before my summer break. We've been working hard all this year, putting these resources together. And today's the final day of our SYMBOLUM TCG, the trading card game. Hoy es el último día que vamos a trabajar en el juego de tarjeta de SYMBOLUM, que es un recurso de nuestro ministerio para el alcance de las almas, enseñanza de las verdades de la palabra de Dios a través de un juego. So these are teachings of the scripture, of the word of God, the wisdom of his word through the means of a trading card game with the obvious updates, I should say, of the NFTs that we are now have that advancement in the TCG space to actually do games which are NFT asset empowered or enabled. Así que estos juegos tienen también la habilidad, y yo tengo la habilidad de hacerlos también en forma de non-fungible token, no sé cómo se dice en español, debo hacer esos términos en español también para poder hacer programación en español, que hasta ahora no lo ha hecho. De todo modo, en la moneda cripto hay algo que se llama non-fungible tokens, que son que la mayoría de la gente lo consideran arte en forma de en la cadena de bloque de cripto, la moneda cripto. Pues no tiene que ser solamente arte, de todos modos. Puede ser otras cosas, pero la gente, como siguen todos en desenfreno de ceguera y lo sencillo, pues tenemos lo que tenemos. Pero no obstante, este juego, las tarjetas en sí son arte y pues se puede hacer en forma de NFT, como había explicado en las primeras sesiones de nuestra serie. So these things can be done as NFTs, as I explained at the first programming. If you missed it, you guys should actually go see the beginning, part 1, part 2, and part 3 last week, to capture the whole gist of this trading card game and the way the church is going to be utilizing it in the future. And presently, right now, we're going to end it this week. We are going to have Genesis 1 pretty much done, in terms of most of the basic stuff today. We're going to go through the game documentation, which explains the game, how it works. We're going to do it here on the fly. Also, it's a part of the creative process, so you guys can also see what to do. Just break the ice and just follow along. And with your own ideas, if you're watching this and you want to develop your own TCG game just to have it under your belt, it looks great on a resume. Well, then you just select the concepts as we've been going along. You should watch it and just put your own concept in there, and just follow along and go through the movement, if you will. And today I'm going to show you the creative process, or share that creative process with you in terms of the thinking in creating the game documentation. Now, you don't normally do it the way I did it, like the game documentation is being done here at the end, right? Usually you do the game documentation first, right? You do the concept, you get the concept in your mind, and then you work it out in the game documentation, and then you go and put the game together. What we've been doing in step 1, part 1, 2, and 3. And so this is really what you should do first. But since the game was already conceived before, the SYMBOLUM has already been conceived. When you see part 1, you'll understand why we did it the way we did it, because it's already done. SYMBOLUM is already, I have the software already waiting for these cards, actually. It's all what's needed. And so, but I don't want to go through the whole thing, but you'll realize why I did it backwards now, and so the game documentation is being done now. You'll understand that why if you see part 1, 2, and 3. It'll all fall into place. The game basically was already created, 2016. The big game, the mini game developed was in my mind to do to developmentally wise, and so basically, so that's why it has we have the rollout that we have today. Así que tiene este desarrollo, como lo ven hoy, al revés, porque en realidad la documentación debe ser lo primero, porque eso es lo que da la guía a la creatividad de crear las cosas y los elementos del juego, etcétera, etcétera. Necesita la guía, el bosquejo, que es lo que es la documentación de juego que vamos a elaborar hoy. Pero la razón, si usted ve los partes 1, 2, 3, usted se notará la razón que lo hice de esta manera, al revés, porque el juego ya estaba hecho. No estoy creando algo nuevo que pensé en este mes, sino que este es un juego que tenía en mente ya desde los 2016. Y es parte de ese juego principal, SYMBOLUM. Lo que estamos elaborando aquí es Génesis 1, o sea que el SYMBOLUM, para organizarnos mejor en términos de tener todos los símbolos de la Biblia, pues empezamos capítulo por capítulo. O sea, la idea es hacer un juego, porque hay que esperar a que hacemos todos los capítulos para tener el juego, ¿no? Right? So, entonces vamos a ir capítulo por capítulo con el juego mini, como yo lo llamo los juegos mini, y cada juego mini que se hace se agrega esas tarjetas y el juego, monos de jugar, se agrega al símbolo principal, y así se sigue añadiendo. Eso es. Nosotros hemos en uno de los parte 2 quizás se analizó cuántos capítulos de la Biblia hay. Mil y pico más, muchos capítulos, y esos son muchos juegos que nosotros vamos a tener mini, que se va agregando al juego principal símbolo. Por ende, el juego símbolo va a ser inmenso. Así que, at the end of the day, as more and more chapters are transmitted and translated, if you will, into the TCG format, SYMBOLUM is just going to be added to. It's going to be a monster of a game. It will be quite a large game with a large card base and quite a number of different game plays, mini game plays that will be, it's going to be so much. So it's not going to be like, let's go and sit down and play SYMBOLUM. It's going to be, let's play SYMBOLUM and, this way and that way. It's going to be different ways of playing SYMBOLUM. So the game itself is going to have almost carry on the character or nature of the Word of God. Oh my. And that's not to be, I'm not trying to be boastful in here, but the Word of God is expansive. It's an endless resource. And because it's an endless resource, well, the game based on the concepts in the Bible is going to be an endless resource as well. It's going to inherit in some of those qualities. And so, we've opened up a can of worms here. It's going to be endless different ways of playing the game, and it's just going to be loads of fun as we go along and develop this. So, and you guys here, members of this church, yeah, man, you guys are cool. You're members of this church that has that game. Yeah, it's cool, man. I said, listen. Ustedes son miembros de esa iglesia que produce ese juego expansivo, etc. Eso es tremendo. So, give yourselves a pat on the back. You made it. All right. So, like I said, in the first part, I made the invitation for artists to contribute their artwork. It's still open. You don't know what I'm talking about? That means you weren't paying attention or you weren't there. So go look for part 1 and find out how you can participate. You can participate if you're an artist. Así que si tú eres un artista, habría una oportunidad para usted participar en este proyecto. Mira el parte número 1 de esta serie y edúcase y participa. It's not going to be too late because we can always make new editions of the cards or a card and release it. But my offer still stands because that's what my offer was. I made an incredible offer, a great offer, so take me up on that. It's available. So let's get into the documentation. Vamos a entrar a la documentación. Again, if somebody came, they want to learn Bible today, you want some real apologetics today. I got a wonderful 4-hour video I did yesterday. So look that up. Yesterday, the Sabbath, I had it's a rebuttal. So I have someone else, another pastor from, I think, I didn't research him because it was a search on Facebook for the Sabbath, and his video popped up. So he was the lucky winner to be rebutted by me yesterday. So it's 4 hours of really good tearing apart of what the pastor was presenting as reasons for keeping the Sabbath. So go ahead. That's over there. You got 4 hours worth. So you have 2 hours for yesterday, 2 hours for today. But today we're finishing off. That was the last one for the pre-summer session, and today's the last session for this Sunday for pre-summer session. So today's the last of this series here, and on September we'll be getting back to other resources that we'll make for this year. This year is a year of resources, so that's what we're doing. Así que este año estamos trabajando, desarrollando recursos para la iglesia, para el ministerio, y este es el último día de esta serie antes del verano, el descanso de verano, y así mismo en septiembre vamos a comenzar otra vez con otro recurso, lo que el Señor pues tiene en mi corazón para crear. All right, so that's what's going to be happening. Rundown on that. Let's go to the screen. Let's get this documentation going. Okay, vamos a ir a la documentación. Let's give this, let's just make sure everything is Just give us a moment. Okay, there we go. You had to wake that up. Wake up. All right. So here we have the beginning documentation on SYMBOLUM. Okay, this is the game design document. This is well, you can see it's the original logo I created for the game. Este es el logo original que creé para el juego. Y entonces, so aquí lo ven. It's probably going to go into an update sooner or later. We'll see. We'll see if we work on this during the summer before we do any publishing of the game. I really want to push out Genesis 1. Quiero que se manda a publicar el Génesis 1, el juego, ya para el verano, durante el verano. So that is really what I want to see. I want to see the Genesis 1 game in people's hands by September. Okay, so I'm letting the pastors know out there that this is a project that we're going to push through. This is happening. Esto es un proyecto que va a hacerse realidad durante el verano. Así que ya para septiembre, I want to see some games. I want to see some SYMBOLUM games being played. Así que that's a word out to the pastors out there. Make it happen, brother. Make it happen. And don't let nothing get in the way. Make the SYMBOLUM game happen in the summer. This is it. Okay, este es el tiempo de que este juego se elabora y se publica ya durante el verano, y ya para septiembre y el otoño quiero ver las iglesias y los jóvenes y todo el mundo jugando este juego. Yo quiero que se haga las pruebas y que se oiga sugerencias y cosas así, porque es necesario también que otras personas juegan y opinan, ¿no? So what we want to have is the church to try this game out first, and have the youth playing it, get together, and, don't play bridge, don't play Pinocchio, whatever they call that, Pinocchio. Don't play blackjack, play SYMBOLUM, and try the game out. And I need to hear the feedback, because feedback is really important, and for suggestions and things or issues that people may have. So what we're going to do, we're going to first release the cards themselves, the card deck for SYMBOLUM, Genesis 1. And that will be the first way you play the game, with the cards. I'm going to also release, along with that, some video links, so that people on their mobile phone, when certain time in the game, as it's called for, you click on the link or whatever, and then the video will give background information or whatever the integration we make for this game. In a trial period, so that and then after that I want to hear feedback. I want to say, how is it working for you all? How are you engaging it? There may be by that time the software version, quizás la versión del programa de computadora lo hago quizás, pero la forma de tarjetas manual, física, eso sí para septiembre debe ya estar en las manos de las iglesias, para poder empezar a utilizarlo y probarlos, ¿no? Y hacer sugerencias en mejor. So that's what we want to see happening by September. So I'm pushing this out throughout the summer, and I'm just letting pastors out there know that they need to get their act together in terms of making this a reality. This has to get on, okay? Now, little promo here for myself. This is part of one of the games that again I offer as a service. Hago también un servicio de crear juegos para personas que quieren que yo creo el juego, and that is available on Fiverr. I'm Automated Profit on Fiverr. En el sitio de web Fiverr, yo soy Automated Profits, es mi usuario allí. Y allí ofrezco ciertos servicios Uno de ellos es crear un juego de tarjeta así para los que quieran. Ese particular, oferta particular es para hacerlo en forma de NFT, que es lo que yo digo, lo más moderno, lo más avanzada y la más que puede crear ingresos para la persona que lo haga. Ya eso está disponible ahí, el que él desea. Y perdón por el comercial, pero está en los papeles. Eso es parte de lo que es esta documentación. I'm using this from, of course, I'm adapting it from a previous client. Yo estoy adoptando esto de algo que hice para un cliente. And so this confidential information is something that I would have for my clients on your job, en una información confidencial que haré o que estaré presentando al cliente, pero eso no tiene nada que ver con nosotros aquí, la iglesia, lo que estoy haciendo aquí. So this has nothing to do with the church per se. The church is not my client. I'm doing it for the church's benefit. So this confidential claim here and whatnot is really not relative to that. So what I'm going to do is, as we go along, I'm going to, let me go to the regular camera while I fix up the documentation, which is to clean it up from things that are pertaining to the other game that I made for the client. So I'm going to just take those things out before we get there. All right, so the first part is the game design summary. Lo primero es la sumación del diseño del juego, right? And the game design summary is basically what the game is. So the game is, let's say this SYMBOLUM Genesis 1 TCG is based on traditional trading card game mechanics and will be developed and playable in 3 forms, and they would be the first form in 3 forms in the order of development, and that those 3 forms are 1, physical card game, right? Primero, este juego está basado en los juegos de tarjeta tradicional, en sus mecánicas, y será desarrollada y jugada en 3 formas en el orden del desarrollo. 1, and again, this is not something I recommend that you all do, because what I'm doing here is only because I have one of these things already done, so I'm accommodating what's already been done. In most of your cases, you're starting from scratch, so you're really only going to do 1 game and 1 mode. But because I already have like the software already done, software is done, it's waiting for the cards, so I already have another way of I have 2 games instantly. Once I have these cards done, I have 2 games. The physical, all you have to do is get them printed, and the software one, which all I have to do is just put in the graphics into that software game, and that's ready to go. Así que la razón que tengo más de un desarrollo aquí es porque ya está hecho uno de los etapas o uno de los desarrollos, que es la de la programa de computadora. Ya eso ya está hecho, está esperando las tarjetas, o sea, el arte de las tarjetas. Eso es todo, porque ya lo demás, o sea, la programa está hecho y listo, esperando. Que ustedes ya vieron el foto de ello en el primer programa. Pienso que te enseñé, el primero o el segundo. So in the first or second part of these series, I already showed you a picture or a screenshot of that program. So again, all you saw was the back of the cards with the SYMBOLUM logo right on it. You saw the backs. You didn't see the front because the fronts weren't ready. The only card I had ready was the sun card, as you saw before in those previous parts. So once I have all the cards done, all I have to do is, feed it into the software, and then the software is done. You see, so. But since we were dealing about trading card games, you need to start at the beginning, which is first is the trading card. So my recommendation, anyway, is that if you're going into TCG, don't just do the modern NFT or software Unity based video game type of trading card game, because you have Hearth and you have what's that other one? Anyway, you have those other card based games that are video games. Right? So you don't want to just go and do those unless that's what you do. In other words, if you're a developer and you know how to code, and you code like nothing, well then of course then that's what you want to do, right? But I recommend that if you're starting out as a game developer and you don't know much about any code or anything like that, even if you did, I still think it's wiser to start a game physically, to start the game traditionally as a physical card game. And using that, either way, even if you're coding or while you're coding, you're using that physical game for testing and you get feedback and see how people enjoy it. And also you're creating community, and in any case, that's what you want to do. Quieres también crear, si haces lo físico, el juego físico, que mi sugerencia es mejor para empezar, aún siendo tú un diseñador de juegos, o sea, un programador que conozcas hacer el lenguaje de juegos o de computadora para crear el juego de video, el juego de computadora, aunque tú lo sabes hacer, quizás es algo para ti fácil, bien, está bien, pero siempre sugiero hacerlo físico para que haya, ¿cómo se dice? Haya un modo de probar, y también probando el juego que los otros juegan y opinan. Usted necesita tener opiniones. Gente, le gusta esto, no le gusta eso, esto es un poco difícil, esto es muy fácil, whatever. Usted tiene que oír de otra gente qué son sus opiniones, su experiencia con la idea, el concepto de su juego. So, siempre me gusta la idea de crear juegos físicamente. Yo creo que esa es la parte número uno de cualquier juego. I've seen it done. Actually, people, before they do TCG games, before they send it to the print house for the physical card, they cut out cardboard. You take your old, take those cereal boxes and whatnot. You cut it into card sizes, and you have cards. I think it's something to do with your card, with your boxes, instead of throwing them away. All right, you want to recycle. You should recycle towards something positive for your own self. Así que tú debes reciclar esas cajas de cereal y otras cajas que tiene así de paquetes de la casa, de cereales, de cualquier otra comida en caja, y cortarlo en la medida de tarjetas y archivarlo. Es una actividad para tener los muchachos que hagan, cogen todas esas cajas, y ahora en el verano aprovecha, right here in summertime, you guys can get all those kids to cut out these card sizes of these cereal boxes and any other box you have, shoe boxes, or just this cardboard. You don't want the thick stuff, not the cartons, but you want the boxes, the packaging boxes, like the cereal boxes and stuff like that. And you have a pattern, cut out one card size, and that's the pattern. So they go with the crayon or with the pencil, and they just make that square, and then cut out these little cards, blanks. You want blanks. You just let them cut out blanks and turn all these empty cartons into blank cards for you. And then even for them. And then something you can do even for them. Let's just say, you got your cards out, but what do you do with the rest of them? You have them create a card game for themselves. Have them draw little pictures, mommy, daddy, whatever, this or that, Bible characters, whatever, and have them make their own cards, little sets of cards. They can create things that have, in their life, things that they enjoy, stuff they like to eat, and all of that. And once they get all these little cards of things, then put them together and then create a game out of that, and that's a nice little family game that you guys can develop by yourself. And maybe they could give you some ideas of something really good to do, to make it more something that will be more commercial, if you will, and it'll be a family project. And you'll never know. You may have the next big trading card game idea just from that, just from the family participating together. Those are a couple of brains there. I know for some families they'll take all the brains you can muster, but hey, listen, that's the best chance, the best shot you got to get all these brains thinking together. Así que uno puede hacer con los niños que es una actividad. Coge las cajas de cereal y cosas y empieza a cortar las cuadras, que el tamaño de tarjetas. Y entonces usted coge las tarjetas para su idea, ¿no? Pero y lo demás, los restantes, pues entonces da cada niño una cantidad y que dibujan ciertas cosas de la vida de ellos, lo que les gusta, lo que no les gusta, y separa lo que les gusta de lo que no les gusta. Entonces, después de todo eso, tiene familia, el tío, esto, otro, entonces usted puede añadir a cada tarjeta cualquier idea, ¿no? El tío siempre está riendo, la idea es que si aparezca el tío en la tarjeta, pues entonces tiene que reír como el tío, algo así. Son cosas que son particular a la idea que el niño tuvo cuando o piensa de fulano de tal. Entonces, así como me dibujan a mí en su tarjeta que el pastor, entonces cuando la tarjeta sale del pastor, pues tienen que hacer algo que el pastor hace, right? Es un símbolo. Entonces eso sería un tipo de poner una reacción a una acción con una tarjeta que el niño crea, ¿no? Pero es bueno el ejercicio, porque entonces dar al niño una actividad positivo. Número 2, están produciendo de basura algo productivo y algo que puede en un futuro puede ser un estímulo de creatividad productivo y comercial. You have by doing something like this with the family, you have a potential of developing future entrepreneurship, future game development, and give them that early experience of creating something, out of a fun activity and even their own creativity. Now there's something they can do from drawing instead of just wasting paper and drawing for no end except for drawing itself, which is an activity, a fun activity a lot of kids do. But it's good that they can see that maybe your fun activities can become serious activities, it still be fun, So aquí el niño puede aprender que sus actividades de alegría y de creatividad puede convertirse en actividades comerciales, y ser felices, y ser fuentes de felicidad y de gozo y de unión familiar. So I think it's a good idea in any case. So the physical games are always a number one thing to do, even with expertise in having software created. Así que haciendo el juego físico te da más, es un beneficio mayor que solamente hacer un juego de video. Plus the fact, the greatest benefit of all is that you have two games instead of one, right? In terms, commercially speaking, or business-wise, it's better to have two games than one game. When you make money from two games, then, you make double the money than you would from one game only. Because there's people that would want to play the card game, or, they're not always will have sitting at their computer for the computer game. And if it's not a mobile game, you're not making it for mobile, they can't play your game unless they're at their computers. So then that becomes an issue, right? But then they have the card game, and anyway, they can pull out the card and start playing the game. So that's a great idea. Así que tener la opción de que la persona juegue la tarjeta, uno puede siempre caminar con las tarjetas donde quiera. Y las tarjetas trabajan sin luz, sin electricidad, sin batería, ¿verdad? No podemos pensar siempre que solamente el juego tiene que ser el juego de video, que es un problema que tiene la gente. La gente cree que cuando tú dices juego, es juego de video. No, hay diferentes tipos de juegos, y juegos que no necesitan electricidad ni batería. Esos son juegos que uno debe siempre estar creando. So we should always be able to create games without need of a battery or connecting to the internet or having electricity. Simply make card games that don't need any of that, and any place you go, as long as you have the cards on you, you can play the game. All right, that's another game to sell. Talking business-wise, that's something else that can be sold. All right, so we have the physical card game. That's the first way. We have the PC software game. Misspelled, of course, you know me. Software. And then the third is the NFT, which will be in mobile form, right? Using the NFT. Así que la tercera forma de este juego será a través, se presta por siendo el arte, siendo un juego de tarjeta. Because it is a card game and an art game, a game based on art assets, simply it can be played through the NFT medium. So then that brings it into mobile phones, doesn't it? So as long as a mobile phone can afford you interaction with an NFT, TCG games can be had. This is what the issue that people are not realizing with NFTs. NFTs can do a lot of stuff. El NFT puede hacer muchas cosas que la gente no se está realizando. You just look at one picture, they think they're Rembrandt. Así que todo el mundo se cree que son un artista famoso como Rembrandt. No, puede ser un juego. La cosa es que tienen que saber, que tienen que pensar. So again, this is a different use for NFTs in terms of making the NFT more and more a game in and of themselves, which is again something that I've created, the first to create that. Yo soy primero en crear un NFT que es un juego en sí, no que es usado en juegos, ¿sí? So, particularly, I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the NFTs, where most people are not thinking the way I'm thinking. NFT opens up a whole new world for the game industry, and not just game assets where everyone is going to. That's like the easy way. We did the first game completely on an NFT that is an NFT, and that is and so that is what we are working on, that I have done. So the TCG game here, at least this other, and those are not TCG games, by the way, what I'm talking about, but the TCG can easily be crafted using the NFT solely. So, así que un juego de tarjeta puede ser completamente utilizado en una NFT. Más fácil que los otros juegos. Yo tengo otro tipo de juegos usando el NFT, que todavía la gente no sabe cómo lo estoy haciendo, pero esto de tarjeta es más fácil todavía. So I find that the TCG is very easy to implement as on the NFT. Okay, so that's what it is. So the game design summary basically is that the SYMBOLUM Genesis 1 is a traditional trading card game. It will be done physically as a physical card game. It will have a PC software version, right? Which is what this is, version. And it will be an NFT version of it. So you can see here that now we were talking about there's over 1,000 and whatnot, 1,000 plus mini games that we will have with the TCG game, with this one, but that was just one version, right? So now you see what we're talking about here. Now times it by 3, because you thought that was bad. That's why in that first time I showed you how many chapters there were in the Bible, and not that there'll be that exact amount of mini games, because remember, certain chapters will go through. Certain games will have like 2 or 3 chapters together because it has the same story, So what we're going to do, we're not really just doing it chapter by chapter. We're really going to be doing on like story by story, the things that happen. So if the story takes up 2 or 3 chapters, it's going to be 2 or 3 chapters, right? But remember, there are 3 versions of that game. So the physical card game, the software game, and then the NFT version. Okay. So, en cualquier momento usted tiene que realizar que aunque nosotros vamos a combinar capítulos, porque lo que vamos a concentrar no es tanto capítulo por capítulo, sino historia por historia, evento por evento, ¿ok? A veces son capítulos, pero a veces son 2 capítulos, a veces son 3 capítulos, ¿verdad? So, entonces pero de todo modo, cada juego va a tener 3 versiones, ¿sí? So, ahora todavía estamos hablando de 3,000 ahora versiones y 3,000 juegos, porque son 3 versiones de cada juego. No todo el mundo va a jugar todas las versiones o va a tener habilidad de tener o de jugarlo en las diferentes versiones completamente. So, algunos van a tener la de tarjeta, otros van a tener la de la computadora, otros van a tener la de NFT, right? Algunos 2 versiones de ese mismo capítulo, ese mismo evento, quizás, So again, that's all those possibilities happen. These are options, estos son opciones que va a tener el cliente. These are options that the client or the game player will have at all times. So maybe you've had the physical game for a year. You've been playing that. I want to try the NFT because that's what you play well. Have you tried the NFT version? No, I haven't. I'm going to do that next. So some people, that's the way people will work themselves through the different versions, okay? Because it just makes sense and whatnot. So así que Hay gente que van a estar jugando uno de los juegos por un año más y entonces nunca probaron ese mismo juego en la versión de NFT. Van a probarlo. So sooner or later they'll be buying the NFT game. Sooner or later they'll buy the PC software version or add that module, the new cards, to the PC version. Version. And but the PC software version, by the way, is not like Genesis 1. The PC software version is SYMBOLUM, is the main game. So what's going to happen is that you will add the cards to the PC version. So el juego principal es la de PC. So that's something also that you guys need to understand as well. This is the main game. And the main game, in other words, SYMBOLUM, that is the master game, if you will. El SYMBOLUM es el maestro, que quiere decir que ese es el juego principal. Symbol es la que se juega en el PC, right? So, cuando uno compra, vamos a decir, Genesis 1, Genesis 2, Genesis 3, por ejemplo, uno va y tiene el de PC, y quiere va a tener que añadir las tarjetas al PC, a la versión PC. So that's another purchase, because if you're playing it physically and you want to be able to play the game on your computer, you'll have to buy the cards for the computer. So you'll have to buy Genesis 1 cards for the computer. You'll have to buy the Genesis 2, 3 cards for the computer, etc. So that's how you add your cards to the PC game SYMBOLUM. Porque el juego símbolo es mayormente en el PC. Now, you could play SYMBOLUM. SYMBOLUM will also be a tabletop game as well. The PC version is really a PC version of the tabletop game. Like Monopoly, you have the board. The PC version is the board on the PC. That's what it is. So originally, really, the game is the physical cards with the board. See? So you can get, later on, we'll do the board physically, and you can buy SYMBOLUM cards and the board, etc., as the board game, right? The PC game is already available in terms of the fact that it's already on a piece of software. So I can play it on the software, but the board doesn't exist physically, right? So I hope I don't confuse all you about it. Like I said, this game is, like halfway done already. Este juego está desarrollado casi a la mitad ya. Y estamos, como decir, rellenando las primeras cosas ahora. Eso es lo que ustedes están viendo. No es que estoy haciendo esto, sino que estoy rellenando lo que no se había hecho antes en este desarrollo de este juego. All right. So again, between what I've just explained and what and the previous 3 sessions, you should have a pretty much good picture of what we're doing. Así que con los primeros sesiones que hemos tenido ya y lo que describí ahora, debes tener una idea mayor de lo que estamos haciendo. Let's go to the next thing. So we've given you the basic design, what the game is in its design. Second thing is look and feel. Now, this is from the previous, my templates here. The TCG as the visual style of a typical physical TCG card game. It would have that if we're making the physical one, and the gameplay would probably be like that. We're going to add here TCG as the visual style of the physical TCG card game. All right, card game. And a card game with a game board. So it has a game board. This TCG has a game board. All TCGs do not have game boards. This one does have a game board. It's a play area. All TCGs have a play area, the table. So they normally don't need a board, typically, and because the board becomes the table that you're playing on, right? And where you're placing the cards, simply. This one, because I'm putting it on software, has a board, because I created the software first. Esta, como lo hice en forma de programa de computadora, tiene una tabla. So, por esa razón estoy tendiendo o tengo la tendencia ahora de que el juego de tarjetas también conlleva una tabla o un papel que se abra, una mapa, como se dice, para poner sus tarjetas en sitio, ¿no? Because the game, in other words, if you think about Monopoly, the cards replace the Monopoly squares. Okay, so that you can understand it. This is the reason you do this documentation. So you're giving the idea so that people can see what the game is. The TCG is a visual style, typical physical TCG card game with a game board, much like Monopoly. But the cards replace the squares. The squares you see in the Monopoly game format. Okay, so like when you see the Monopoly game, you see the square. Cuando tú estás jugando Monopolio, usted sabe que los monopolios tienen los cuadros. Entonces en este juego lo que no hay esos cuadros no significan nada, son cuadros vacíos, pero tienen el tamaño de las tarjetas. But those squares that we have on our game are the size of the TCG, the trading cards at themselves. Okay? And so that, because that's where the trading cards are laid down. So, but the same process that the gameplay is moving around, the dice is thrown, and you move it around on top of the cards. The cards, again, are the spaces. So let's say you got a 5, so you go over 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all upside down. The back side is all you see. Then you land on the 5th card. Boom. That 5th card, then you turn over. Boom. See? So that's the engagement of the game as you go along. All right. So like in Monopoly, you just have a square, and then sometimes the square tells you to pick a card from the community chest. So en el juego de Monopolio, a veces tú caes en una cuadra que dice el tesoro de la comunidad. Entonces tú tienes que escoger una tarjeta de ese pan. Aquí la tarjeta ya está en el sitio. So cuando tú llegas en el sitio, en el espacio, la tarjeta ya está ahí. Esa tarjeta lo coge y se manifiesta allí en la mesa. Todos lo ven. Y entonces de eso se empieza el juego en esa sesión. So that's how the game is engaged in that session. Turning over that card. So that happens in the software. That happens. That's the mainstay of the SYMBOLUM gameplay. Now again, there's other ways, other mechanics of doing that. There will be other ways of playing the same game, having the same effect, obviously. So again, but these are things that we'll look at as we move along and play the game itself. So the visual style of a typical physical TCG card games with a game board much like Monopoly, but the cards replace the squares you see in the Monopoly game format. Right. So that gives you an idea of that's the look and feel So you already know that it's going to be like sitting down to play Monopoly, something like that, in terms of throwing the dice, moving the pieces, and then turning over a card. So that issue of engaging a card with a space is tied directly to where you land because the card is already there. The space otherwise means nothing. What gives the space meaning is only the card that you flip over. And obviously that changes with each gameplay or with each session, depending on what we do with the cards. If that card is replaced, then it's an unknown card, so it becomes something different the next time somebody lands on it, etc., etc. Right? So así que cuando alguien juegue esa tarjeta, dependiendo en el juego cómo se desarrolla, esa tarjeta se cambia. So ya no es el mismo. So el otra persona que caiga en ese cuadro no sabe lo que va a venir allí. So va a cambiar. So en esa cosa difiere de monopolio, porque el monopolio siempre el tren está siempre donde está. Y esta calle siempre está ahí, you know. So in Monopoly, the trains are always where the trains are, and the street is always the street, and you know which ones the higher hotels are and which ones are the cheaper hotels. You know that already. It's the same way in every game. But SYMBOLUM, it will not be the same in every game because it changes. And also, it makes the game different because depending on like what type of cards populate the game board, you have different games that can be played. Entonces, el juego cambia drásticamente con el cambio de tarjetas o la variación de tarjetas que se pone en los sitios. Se puede crear diferentes tipos de juego con imponer el orden de tarjetas o cambiar la disponibilidad de ciertas tarjetas en la tabla. So by changing the order of the game, instead of being randomized, which is the way we're organizing it and doing it now, is random placement of cards. But a different game mode can be to put the certain cards there in a certain arrangement. Can also drastically change the way the game is played. And also, putting certain types of cards in certain places can also create different gameplays. All these things are part of the development of what this game can be and how many different ways that you can play this game. So todo esto tiende a ser flexible. Lo que estamos viendo aquí is the total flexibility of SYMBOLUM in the way it's going to play. So again, I'm allowing this flexibility because I can handle it. You know, I can handle the different modes of play here because I'm not creating a game from scratch. See, the concept for this game, there's certain ideas and concepts behind the SYMBOLUM that make different forms of gameplay, tenable. I'm using these words so people who know the words can appreciate why I'm using them, because they're very exact. They make it tenable, which means that the concept, the basis of SYMBOLUM, create these possibilities, and necessarily so, and that we have to do. We have to have these game modes because the whole purpose of SYMBOLUM demands that we grasp these different possibilities. The whole point of making this game in the first place, not just to make a game so that we can make money or something like that. That's not the point of SYMBOLUM. The point of SYMBOLUM is teaching. So I'm looking at it from how these teachings are supposed to be absorbed, and comprehended by the people playing this game. And so the only way that can happen, that you can have comprehension and domination, is by being able to handle it in different ways. So that means that we can't just make a game that's like just this. This is it. This is all it is. No, we have to make a game that does justice to the premise of the game, the symbolum. That you can take this and use it in different ways, and it works, because that's what the Bible is. The Bible is just an endless resource of working concepts that can be applied in anything and everything. Okay, because the same creator who created everything inspired that word, those words, and those symbols. See? So those are the keys to everything. That's why everything works. Once you understand the Bible, everything else is understood. Everything, without exception. Así que la razón que podemos hacer tantos juegos y hay que ser flexible es porque los conceptos vienen del mismo que creó los cielos y la tierra. Así que todos los conceptos que están en la palabra de Dios comprenden la creación de Dios. So, and I said that way better in Spanish than I did in English. So that the creator of the heavens and the earth is the same author of the Word of God. And we are extracting these concepts from. So these concepts have applicability and validity in all things, in all knowledge, in all applications. Because the same guy who gave us the Word created everything. So that is why symbolum also has the characteristics of being, everything, and being able to play it in many different ways, because the concepts is exactly what it is. It is that. And so again, it's not something I'm afraid, like people, why are you telling, this is a game idea, you're telling it all, they don't, that's not the point. They won't understand. People don't understand the real power that is in the Word of God. Okay? They will all be like fake copies, like weak games. If they try to copy what I'm doing, they can't. Because you need not that my smart. No, you need the wisdom of God. See, understanding what His Scripture is meaning, what it's saying, what it's representing. That's what makes the symbolum game unique. This is going to be a unique gameplay, and people are going to really be a great benefit from it. What other game are you playing that can even be psychotherapeutic? Right, well, psychotherapeutic. What are you talking about? Science, psychology, right? Yeah. Right. You can't even imagine that, because all you're thinking is games. Just games. Just have fun. But this symbolum game is going to change lives too. This symbolum game is going to help people in a mighty way. Praise God. Este juego de símbolos va a ser algo tremendo, impactante. Va a impactar las vidas de mucha gente. Okay, no porque yo soy tan fantástico, no tiene que ver conmigo, porque son los conceptos que Dios nos ha dado, because they're based on the concept that God has given us. That has nothing to do with me, It has to. The issue is that God is God. God is real. That's it. It's His power. He is proving Himself. Él es dando evidencia, Dios. Okay, and it is what it is. Y es lo que es. Sencillamente, hay gente que se este juego va a salvar vidas. This game is going to save lives. Okay, just like I help someone, change from killing themselves, right, and staying alive. They're still alive today. They were going to kill themselves. And they came and crossed their path with me. God made sure they would cross the path. And they changed their mind after sitting down with me and talking with me. Okay? And I believe that SYMBOLUM will do the same for many people. Just a game, folks, right? But I don't hear anybody saying Call of Duty did that. If anything, Call of Duty caused the death. People kill over Call of Duty. But people will live over SYMBOLUM. Santo a su nombre, gloria. Gente van a vivir por el juego de SYMBOLUM, por la sabiduría, la enseñanza que el juego SYMBOLUM le va a impactar sus vidas para vida, como yo impacté vidas para que no se suicidaran, y hoy día viven por medio de esa intervención. La misma extracto, la misma sabiduría está en SYMBOLUM, en este juego, y yo no tengo ninguna duda que este juego va a salvar vidas de mucha gente, right? Y además de muchas otras cosas. So I'm saying it right now. I wouldn't be surprised people get healed by playing the game. They receive healing, divine healing, and miracles of God happen throughout this game. I don't have any doubt. Any doubt of it. Simply because of the things that we are going to be unveiling and people are going to be realizing through the gameplay. Por la razón a las cosas que estamos revelando y manifestando, y que la gente van a poder comprender a través de este juego, yo no dudo que habrá sanidades y milagros. Vamos a oír testimonios. Okay? And the SYMBOLUM is not a religious, it's going to be a game. It's a game, just like Monopoly and all of that, but it's something different about that. Pero va a haber algo distinto de ese juego. Es como monopolioso, pero hay algo distinto en ese juego, and it will have an impact. So like I'm saying to the pastors, you got this game, run with it, man. Run with it. That's it. Play games. Get those youth playing the game. Santos, eso yo. Vamos a jugar juegos aquí con esos jóvenes. Vamos a reunir los jóvenes y vamos a tener competición y vamos a tener juegos y vamos a jugar el SYMBOLUM. And I think that's a special thing. It's a really great thing. Okay, so getting back, let me prepare the next thing for us. Again, there'll be other things to put into this. Okay, so let's link into the game design section. Vamos a ir a la sección. And for me, last week I kept talking and talking. You guys have to tell me something. You got to tell me I'm gone over the mark. Because last week we really went over the mark. So I got the clock here looking at it. And last week there were so many things on my computer I did not see the time. And I was in the mood, so I was in my muse, and we went on for almost 4 hours, I think. All right, game design. Now, the basic game design, we gave a summary before. This game design template that I have is on a game that combines the game mechanics of Magic, which was the other game I couldn't think of, and Hearthstone. Now, this CryptoKitties is the issue of NFTs. For the NFT version. And again, I'm going to put this in parentheses because I may not do the breeding functionality for the NFT version. I'm still looking into that. But as the TCG, so let me just put here the main issues. TCG, so that we can remember. And as we're building up the game, the game documentation, that we can remember that we're talking about TCG game, and we're talking about the software, and then the NFT, okay? So, for the TCG game, it combines the mechanics is how the game is played of Magic Hearthstone is a traditional trading card game, and it does combine some features of it. It's a little different, but yes. So we're going to use that. It combines game mechanics. So esto combina parte de esos juegos de Mágica, que se llaman Mágica y Hearthstone. Son dos juegos de tarjeta que se juega, y básicamente tiene elementos, porque estos son elementos comunes de juego de tarjeta, particularmente de física y de versión de PC o de juego de video. Esas son realidades que no se pueden negar. So the TCG combines game mechanics of Magic, and Hearthstone. The software combines elements of Monopoly, right? Monopoly and we should also say that about the game mechanics, the TCG, with some technology, with some internet technology, and function. So, and functionality actually was a better word, as it offered it. And then the software combines elements of Monopoly. TCG should also say the same thing. Monopoly and software combines elements of Monopoly and the so basically it's all the same. Monopoly and the internet enabled, we already have that's already on the software, and more dependency on internet accessibility, I should say there. Okay, and then the NFT combines. You can't use NFTs like in the relation. There's no mechanics of Magic and Hearthstone in NFT, so that doesn't apply with the NFT version. Really, the NFT version is really a question of, is it going to be like CryptoKitties? And en el hecho del NFT, la situación en el diseño del juego de NFT es si va a ser conforme o similar a la de CryptoKitties, que es CryptoKitties se regenera nuevos gatitas, es el juego ese que genera nuevos gatitas. El juego es generando nuevas generaciones. En SYMBOLUM no tienen que ver generaciones de por lo menos de elementos. So, en sí se puede usar generaciones en otra forma. We can use the generational aspect of the CryptoKitty origination in a different way in the NFT version of this game. Podemos usarlo de otro modo en la generación de algo. Pero right now, because the assets are pretty much what the assets are. You're not going to generate new assets. The game isn't generating new assets. The assets themselves are the main structure of this game. They're the main component of the game mechanic. So it's really, it's not, and because it is based on the on the scripture, on the Bible. You can't be generating new different things. So that doesn't work with our ideation, with our original inspiration for this game. So la inspiración original de este juego no da para hacer un juego basada en la generación de nuevas tarjetas, como hace el juego famoso de CryptoKitties en el espacio de los NFTs. So no compagina ese diseño. Ahora se puede utilizar el funcionamiento de generación para otras cosas. Again, these are things that I'm going to have to look into, think about. It could bring us obviously a different gameplay for the NFT version of the game, and so that may be replacing the need for the board or the lack of it. Although I have a way of incorporating the board, so to speak, in as I've done with other games that I've done like this. Tengo otro modo de quizás de involucrar la tabla o la mapa física en el juego de NFT, como lo he hecho en otros juegos que he hecho por otros clientes. Pero todavía es muy temprano, no estoy pensando en el NFT right now, en este momento, para poder hacer una conclusión de cómo efectuar el juego como NFT. So the NFT is still like on hold for right now, in terms of developing the way we're going to use it or play the game with NFTs. So we will put that, basically on hold. Again, the game is ready for 1 and 2, the software, and for the physical version. And the NFT, and the reason, because the NFT allows us to have a very distinct gameplay, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it will be distinct. So it's hard now to incorporate that distinctiveness while we're still thinking about the design of the physical and the PC version. Así que mientras que estoy pensando del diseño de la versión física y de la versión de PC, es difícil ahora de entretener el diseño del NFT, porque el NFT provee otros recursos, otras posibilidades, maneras de expresión de este juego. So quiero, para ser justo para el juego, ser más, darle más tiempo a esa parte, para crear algo en el espacio del NFT mejor, o sea, más bueno, y más adaptado a ese atmósfera, ese ambiente de NFT, right? No queremos hacer un NFT que es lo mismo que el juego de computadora o lo mismo que el juego de tabla, es imposible, pero queremos hacer algo más, ¿cómo se dice?, más familiar al ambiente del NFT para el juego del NFT. So what we were trying to issue here is that since the NFT gives us so many other options for gameplay, and obviously it's a different medium, different animal than the PC game and the tabletop game, we don't want to force the tabletop game or the PC game into the NFT game. That is nonsense. We don't need to do that. NFT game can be something very, very different, and why not? Using the same art, we're not redoing the art, but the gameplay as the NFT can be very distinct. So in order to be fair to that process, we're not going to define the NFT game as yet. So we're going to leave it until we fully design the physical and the PC game, period. And then we'll come back to this game doc and we'll do the NFT. I'll look into it at that time. But right now we're going to produce the physical game, and I'm going to then start playing around with the software game. I'm not releasing the software game. I'm going to play with it myself and tweak it and make improvements on it and bring it up to some type of workable model, and then that'll be released. Okay, but the card game, the physical game, will be first, and will probably be out there by September. Okay, así que lo que voy a hacer es hacer este juego de tarjeta ya para septiembre. El del PC lo voy a tener yo, lo voy a elaborar, terminar con las tarjetas nuevas que estamos haciendo y empezar probarla y jugarla yo en mi computadora aquí, y después quizás en el otoño más tarde o quizás el año entrante voy a empezar a tirar el versión del PC para primeramente los miembros de la iglesia que lo prueban y lo usan, right, and get feedback then, y oír sus comentarios y recomendaciones en aquel entonces. Pero primero, el diseño, el papel documentación va a concentrarse mayormente en dice la nota ahí que esperaré hasta que las demás cosas son ya definidas. All right, so that does the general statement on game design. And again, these are just the preliminary statements. So now comes the issue is some questions. For example, how is the game inspired by Monopoly? Would be the first thing. So let's do Monopoly. Would be the first question. Now, why are we doing this? It's the good question to ask. Why do we do this? Why do we go through this exercise? You know what the game, I know what the game is, so why do I have to do this? Because sooner or later, I'm going to use a developer. Sooner or later, at some point down the line, I'm going to have to get somebody to help me. Somebody to help me to put stuff together, okay? Especially when we talk about the video game, sooner or later, because, there's other things that I do. So I'm not, it's not my full-time work to do these games or anything like that. I do some things, what I can do, what I can't do, I'm getting help. So you need something to show another person who is a developer so they know what the game is about. So they know exactly, they see the game the way you see it. And so they are the ones that know how to make that idea and turn it into the screen. So if they know what Monopoly, if you're making a video game and it's going to look like Monopoly, the way it plays, the coder needs to know that. He needs to see how is it like Monopoly so that they can say, oh, I see. So you want the game to do X, Y, Z, and it has to look like this, and this, and this. And you mainly want to get that feeling like, oh, it's almost like Monopoly, but it's different. It's a different game. So at least it gives them something to work with, because it's not their idea, it's your idea. How can we communicate? So the reason for this game document is the main purpose is to have a basis of communication and of my ideas for the developer. And so the way to communicate, common union, there's this common union. There has to be a way for you to understand what I'm thinking. So, and we're talking about games, so we have to use. See, it's not that we're copying games. That's not the idea. The idea is to find in other games that are known, that this developer will know, that have the similar feature that we are thinking about in our game. So it makes it easier for me to express. Like right now, you guys are thinking, Monopoly, going around the table and landing on the square. You already know, see? And the developer, if I have a developer do that, I have the software already doing that, but let's say I needed to have a developer develop a better version than I'm going to do, right? A more video gamey type of version, right? So at least they know, okay, I see you. They know already that you're going to want the pieces moving. So the dice, they're going to roll. That's already code and art, right? And then depending on how the dice, the result of the dice, then the computer program is going to move the piece, and you're going to see the piece move. So it tells the developer a lot of what you want. Así que el desarrollador, cuando ve su idea comparando con otros juegos, vamos a decir como Monopolio, pues ya entiende, y es un juego de video que quiere, pues ya él ve que quieres los huesos, yo no sé cómo se dice en español, los numeritos que se tira. Eso es algo gráfica que hay que verse en la pantalla, y después entonces la pieza de la persona tiene que moverse en la tabla. Esos son ya código, ya cosas que él tiene que diseñar y programar en el programa para que se mueva visualmente, y entonces ya sabe que esa tarjeta tiene que hacer así gráficamente y demostrar al jugador lo que dice. So automatically it's not going to stay on the board, the card's going to come up, zoom right into the face like that, right? So that you can read what it says. So see, the developer sees that in his head already, so he knows what he has to make the game do. But you have to be able to explain using other games, all right, because that's the only way you can communicate. He can't look into your head. But if you're comparing it to another game, then he can see what needs to happen. Because it don't make sense. The card flips around, but you see the whole table there, but people are not going to be able to read the card all the way at the table on the screen. So there has to be a way, like all the other card games do, because when you see the card, when you pick on the card comes up like this. See? So you see the cards here. Usted ve la tarjeta aquí en otros juegos, pero cuando tú clique en esta tarjeta, la tarjeta viene y hace así, para que tú puedas leer lo que dice. And all these things the developer, el desarrollador, ve estos problemas y las soluciones a estos problemas para que el juego tenga el movimiento y el progreso que debe tener, y la lógica. So that's why you do these game documents. Por eso tú haces el documentación de juego. No es para ti. La documentación de juego es para el desarrollador, es para otro que continúa o desarrolla ciertas partes. Then there may be parts of this that I can't do. Maybe I can't, which I can, but I'm just saying as an example, maybe I can't do the dice roll. Quizá no puedo hacer parte de este juego, como decir los diamantes, yo no sé cómo se dice en español, los dice, esas de los numeritos, o sea, que se tiran. Quizá yo no sé cómo hacer eso, lo sé hacer, pero por ejemplo, y entonces yo le digo a la persona, mira, yo necesito que tú me hagas la parte que tira esos huesitos, yo lo llamo huesitos, y que produce el número. Y entonces usted puede hacer así, mira, este es el juego así. Entonces la persona ve, mira, lee y dice, ok, so tú quieres que se vea los dice que se tira y da vuelta así, y como hacen en la mesa, tú los tiras así. So ella ya sabe lo que tú quieres, you know. So this is the document. It helps another develop with parts of it or with all of it, depending on what you want to do with it. Así que dependiendo si necesitas que tú necesites una parte hecha o que el desarrollador necesita hacer toda, pues entonces él con estos documentos él puede seguir. Algo pasa contigo, ya tú estás en el hospital, no puedes trabajar más en este juego. Otra persona puede venir y continuar porque ya tiene la idea que tú querías. The other good thing about having the game doc is, of course, if something should happen to you. Well, right now, if something happens to me, you know, the pastors can say, well, the pastor was working on that game. We're the game doc so that we can have it continue. So, los pastores, como si algo me sucede a mí, puede ir, ¿qué pasó con el documento del pastor de ese juego? Vamos a seguir el proceso que él quería con ese juego, vamos a hacerlo. Y ya con ese documento, usted lo da a un desarrollador y el desarrollador puede hacer este juego. So this is as simple as that, because once you have it as a game document, anyone that knows how to make games can make this game happen, okay? Because they see the idea. It's okay. So that's what he wants. He wants it to go this way. He has to do that, and then make it work. Because I don't need to be there because I already put what I want, what I was thinking about on this game documentation. That's why the game documentation is a vital piece of information. Confidential. Es confidencial porque tú no quieres, in a commercial interest, you don't want anyone, you know, potentially stealing the game idea, especially the regular games out there which are simplistic. This is complicated to make work, right? Because it has a different premise. It has a premise based on certain knowledge. Okay, that's why I'm not afraid to talk about it in public, because it really... your game is you try to make this game, you never be the game that I make. Yo no temo que la gente como roban esta idea, porque nunca van a hacer el juego que yo voy a hacer. Es como mi enseñanza. ¿Quién enseña como yo enseño? Yo tengo mi tipo, mi manera de enseñar y también mi perspectiva. So I have a distinct teaching style and a distinct perspective than most other people. So it's not going to be the same game. Even if they try to copy this one, it's not going to be the same game. And plus, I'm only talking about Genesis 1 here. We still have the rest of the Bible. You guys haven't heard all of my teaching yet on the rest of the Bible, okay? So again, it's like no way to you'll have to duplicate me first in order to copy my games. This game in particular, the SYMBOLUM game. So, así que no es posible que otro copie mi idea, porque tendrán que conocer todo lo que yo conozco de la Biblia, la manera que yo enseño en la Biblia, todo eso para poder hacer un juego a la calidad que este juego que yo lo estoy haciendo. So again, what we're not discussing here on the screen is really the magic. That's the magic of this Magic TCG game, is the stuff that I'm not saying here, because it's really the teaching itself. It's the wisdom in the Word of God, the knowledge that God has given to me particularly, is what's going into this game, which you guys don't have, in terms of anyone trying to copy, that's a good idea. That's good. This guy has some great idea. It's not going to help you in any way because you don't get it. It's going to be like the difference between all many different churches out there and religious beliefs. That's going to be another game. It's another Bible game, and but it's not going to have the power and the impact that this game is going to have. And that's something that can't be copied, even with all the things I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about mechanics. I'm talking about just way any game is made. And so it really doesn't really help you because the real source to this game is in here, right? And the pastors who learn from me, they know what I'm talking about. Los pastores que aprendieron de mí saben lo que estoy diciendo con esto, lo que está aquí dentro, que no lo pueden copiar. Y eso es la sabiduría y el conocimiento de Dios, directo de Dios, que no lo pueden copiar. It's going to be unique. Así que este juego mío, esta versión de esta iglesia va a ser único. It's going to be a unique game from this source. All right. So anyway, so how is this game inspired by Monopoly? Here we go with this explanation, as you guys already heard in some degree. And it's just basic. I'm just going to do the main idea. Simply is the table or map layout of spaces in the square, and I'm not the square, but in the rectangular configuration. But differing, okay, let's just say what is altogether the same. Table, map, layout, spaces, and rectangular configuration. The throwing of dice to determine the number of spaces a player's piece will move. Okay. So that is the basic inspiration of. I don't know if you guys can see that on the screen. What I just typed there. I'm going to try to blow it up a little bit and see if you guys can see that, because I don't see it updating at all on the screen there. But there you go. Okay. So it takes a while. So it's the table map layout of spaces in the rectangular configuration, the throwing of dice to determine the number of spaces a player's piece will move, right? Differing in the fact that the spaces themselves are valueless or they will be empty. Now I'm going to add here that they could have something for a different game mode, or when the cards run out there may be something there. So that, let's just say that you have like 2 cards there at the beginning of the game, and every time a player lands on the card, they remove the card, and so it leaves the next card. But then that's the last card. Once that card is removed by another player landing, then you have whatever's left there. Could be something. Could change it could be a way of aging the game, or changing the game, moving into a different phase when there are no more cards left on the table, and just the table's valuation itself. So this is something we're still going to look at. And by value could be a printed card on the table itself, or a situation or whatever that can happen after the cards are finished on the table. Unless we add a value spot for when the cards are removed. Okay, so that is a possible gameplay with this. So we may add a default setting, a default card, if you will, a default space value, but that default space value only comes in effect once the cards, if it's 2, if it's 3 cards, 4 cards, whatever is the amount, once the cards are removed, that means that if someone landed on them, turned it over and used the card, then you have what's left. And obviously throughout the game, more and more of these spaces will be revealed, and then the game becomes that, whatever's on the board. Those spaces can exacerbate the end of the game. In other words, it can accelerate the win and losses to a greater degree, forcing someone to win, someone to lose. Obviously, it could force losses that would, hurry up the ending of the game, so that the game doesn't just continue endlessly, but actually when it starts getting bare, the cards start getting off the table, you have an accelerator to determine who is the winner and who is the loser of the game. Puede ser que cuando estas tarjetas se terminan ya, de arriba estos espacios, que en el lugar, lo que haya imprimido allí en la tabla sea un acelerador, o sea que avanza el juego para hacer un ganador y un perdedor más rápido. So in a sense, the game ages. Once the cards are extinguished from the face of the table itself, it starts winding the game down. Okay? So puede ser que cuando ya no hay más tarjetas, pues ya la mapa que está en la tabla avanza el juego, o sea que viene a ser más difícil poder ganar el juego por los vacíos que hay, que tienen valores quizás más exigentes y que causan más pérdida o más ganancias si uno gana, right? So it could be the accelerator. What will be used to accelerate? These are mechanisms. Estos son llamados mecanismos. ¿Qué será usado o implementado para acelerar? ¿Qué será el acelerador? Más dinero. Es como en Monopoly. See, Monopoly also has an accelerator. If you not noticed how Monopoly has its acceleration process, it does have acceleration. Although some people, Monopoly is a long game to play for some. But Monopoly does have an accelerator. Do you guys know what it is? It makes the game go faster. I mean people will lose faster or win faster. You know what that is? Everybody should know, because that's the secret to playing Monopoly, right? You build the hotels, baby. Yeah, the hotel is the accelerator. Once you get the hotel on the property, that is going to make people broke or make people rich. Okay? So that's what I mean by an accelerator. Monopoly has the accelerator, because if not, you would play endlessly, getting rent and charging rent and paying rent and charging rent. There's no acceleration. The acceleration forces people to go broke. Somebody got to go broke in Monopoly. So en el monopolio alguien tiene que ser pobre. Y la pobreza se ejecuta con el establecer el hotel. Los hoteles es el acelerador. ¿Sí? So, cuando you llegas al hotel, ay, qué miseria, ¿verdad? Cuando es tuyo, qué alegría. Pero cuando tú estás en otro, te destruye, right? So that's the accelerant in Monopoly. It's great. It's a great mechanic to accelerate the game, to hurry up. You're going to lose. You got less money, just land on my hotel once. You hear it in the game. You hear people say, come on, land on my hotel. Land on my hotel, baby. Sí, párate en mi hotel, párate en mi hotel de Goyo. Y ese es el juego, el acelerador del juego, porque tú sabes que Si él cae en su hotel, se terminó el juego ahí, pues, no tiene suficiente plata. That is the accelerator. So what is the accelerator in SYMBOLUM would be this space. See, once the cards run out, then the space itself creates an accelerator, so that every time someone lands on these open spaces with this imprinted, it could be an imprinted thing, or you don't have to imprint it on the table, on the board. It can also just be pick a card, because it could be that you have to now pick a card from a pile, right? And that then it's not even, then it's always randomized. You never know what's going to be. So that even makes it even more complicated, because you'll never, it's not like, oh, that card, we know what's under there, and oh man, so no es con no poner, con dejar el hueco, el espacio vacío. Se puede entonces poner un mandato a recoger una tarjeta, que eso es más fatal todavía, porque quiere decir que cada vez el juego se juega es diferente, no es una cosa fija. So podemos tenerlo fijo, como hace Monopolio, que tiene fija los calles y la prisión y los beneficios, pasa y cobra $200, ¿verdad? Qué bueno. So se puede implementar eso. O se puede implementar, escoge una tarjeta, que también Monopolio lo tiene. O usar las dos cosas, fijo y escoge una tarjeta. So maybe that would be the way to go, is to have it both ways. Is to have a steady default empty space like Monopoly has, that no matter what, when the cards run out, you get $200 if you land here, or you pay $200 if you land here, or you pick a card. And so that can happen. That can be a way to resolve this question, is just to have it that way. Have both. Some imprinted spaces and other spaces pick a card. So that will completely randomize at least those empty spaces that say pick a card. You don't know what it's going to be. And changes the dynamics of each and every game you play. Así que cada vez que juegue el juego, cada juego es diferente, porque las tarjetas van a ser diferentes. And then obviously when you add new cards, when there's a new card pack available, like Genesis 2, and Genesis 3, or Exodus 21, then that brings in more possibilities, right? So you start seeing that this game, it's like a never-ending new games, because there's be new things being added as new card packs are released. So mientras que los nuevos tarjetas se desarrollan, usted puede ver que el juego va a tomar mucha amplitud, porque va a haber más y más tarjetas que puede resultar en el juego cuando uno está jugando. So the game becomes bigger, more voluminous. Which is always a recommendation we make, is to start small. Start with the mini games and then expand into the SYMBOLUM game, because it will be quite expansive after a while. Después de un tiempo va a ser muy expansivo el juego de SYMBOLUM, y por eso los juegos mini son vital, son importantes, que la persona empiece a jugar los mini, domina los mini, tenga las tarjetas para poder ahora hacer el juego principal, la grande, y tener mejor, ¿cómo se dice? Manejo o dominio para poder hacer el juego principal, porque el principal, con más tarjetas que se desarrollan, se va a involucrarse mucho más. So SYMBOLUM is going to get into a very big thing. SYMBOLUM is going to get into a lot of game time, and can get very busy just after a few packs are released, because of the amplitude of the magnitude of it. So we're going to be looking into that problem, because that is a problem I'm foreseeing already. Un problema que estoy viendo en el juego ya es la amplitud del juego cuando haya muchas tarjetas. Cómo vamos a limitar el juego, cómo vamos a definir. So that's why I'm saying that the different game modes are necessary to limit the game time. Por eso veo que va a ser necesario limitar el tiempo de juego con diferentes modos de juego. And quite possibly we can have an ever engaging game, an ongoing game that could take years to finish. But you'll be playing other games and mini games and stuff like that. But it's almost like a chess game, back and forth throughout the weeks and months. You're playing against somebody or a team, and you can probably be playing for a long time. The SYMBOLUM. Before someone actually wins that main game, could be one of the game formats. The game without limitation, but then you'll have to play it over time, back and forth, over time, and almost like having a discussion or a debate, back and forth, and over time you have been moving your piece, and now it's your turn, a turn-based game. And every time you're just advancing in the SYMBOLUM game. So that's another thing that I will explore that you could possibly do with SYMBOLUM, because that's the SYMBOLUM game without any restriction. Así que el juego de símbolos sin restricción será un juego extensivo que dura semanas y quizás meses. Para atrás y para adelante por email o en línea, para atrás y para adelante, como una conversación o un debate que uno está teniendo con el tiempo, compartiendo, boom, 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 back and forth, todavía en un juego de símbolos sin limitación, right? Y eso obviamente para los que tienen más capacidad, experiencia, y los que quieren hacer el juego así sin limitación. Obviously, for people who want to do the game without limitations, without its without confining its time, and just enjoying the exercise of the game itself, and the exploring the new cards that come in, and blah blah blah, and really trying the issue there would be trying to end the game. But that will take great skill and whatnot to try to get this game ended once you get it started with someone else who knows what they're doing. So it just can keep going back and forth, and just just a challenge, it's a mental challenge, one mind against the other, for the unlimited, no holds barred game. Así que ese sería el juego sin límites, sin ninguna restricción alguna, sino que un mente contra la otra, boom, boom, boom. Almost like a very complex chess game. Quizás como un juego complejo de ajedrez. Alright, so that is how it is determined by Monopoly, what is inspired by Monopoly game. So again, we'll just put that in there. Okay, and furthermore, we can also add limiters, even time limiters. Limiters can be implemented, and this in particular with the full game. So in a sense, the full game can get limited by the absence of a player's ability to do one thing or another, or maybe they don't have enough credits or enough money or whatever. We're still going to determine the valuation in the game. So the empty space may demand a certain requirement from the person that lands on it, and if they don't qualify, then they're out of the game. So that removes one player. If it's the opposing player, then they're done. They're done. So again, it's a matter of limiting. That's a limiter game. Now, you can decide not to limit the game. So that can be done either randomized with the card. If you decide on not limiting the game with that, you can remove the cards from the deck, so that doesn't happen. So there is flexibility, but again, we can incorporate these limiters. We can put them as separate cards, limiting gameplay. So it makes it harder. It may be better than printing it on the table itself. Just leave it as a random card. So that way, if they choose to play with the limiter, then the limiters can be placed in the cards on the top of the table. And if you want that to be the permanent card on the table, you can simply face it up and put the other cards on top of it face down. So you know that the first card you pick up, turn around, use it, it goes away. Second card, you pick it up. And let's just say you have a 2-layer game. You know that that third card, once you take off that second card, it says whoever lands on here now has to have XYZ. If they don't have XYZ, you're out of the game, right? So, and that could be agreed upon, before the game begins. So, that if you land on that card, and how many of these cards are we going to have? You can have 2 or 3. We'll have a card deck with limiters in it so that you can actually change the limit ability of the game. You can make a game very limited by adding more limiters, or reduce the limitations by reducing the amount of limiters in the deck. So these are things that the players would be able to adjust. How you want to play the game. You want it with a lot of limiters, or you want it with no limiters, or anywhere in between. So that adjusts how long this game's going to go, right? More or less. So you can have it on the deck so that it's there, or you can leave it in the card so that it's a random. It may happen. You may never get to it. Who knows? And that's it. So, and then you can have it like at the end of the card so that you play until these cards are running out. And when these cards start running out, then you start seeing the limiters. So that's like a cutthroat situation, that if you get to this point and you don't have XYZ, you're done. Then the next one, if you don't have XYZ, you're done. And going boom, boom, boom. So at the end of the game, you got like 4 or 5 players, and everyone's holding on. That those last few cards are gonna kill. Boom, 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 right? Until the last one is standing. It's it. I stay alive. So that's another way of doing that. I think that's like the cutthroat game. Okay, that at the end, everyone runs out of time except for the last one. So it's just the play of the roll, the play of the dice, and as simple as that. And then it starts going, choom, one head, the other head, choom, the other head, boom. That's it. Time has run out. And I think I put a biblical thing to that. Your time ran out, and that'll be it. You guys are done. All right. So, and probably that sounds like fun, actually. I get like Noah's flood. The doors closed, so boom, you have to have this and this and this. You don't have this and this, you're not in the ark, and you are dead. Boom. And stuff like that. And then other parts in the Bible, isn't that a little dark, right? Other parts in the Bible where people go kaput, right? I'll use those for those cards for the limitations in the game. So that'll go start knocking people out of the game once it gets to that point. So that would be an option. It could be on the board. It can be in the random cards. At the end of the random cards, I think all of this will put together, and it'll be interesting. So in any case, at minimum, it affords you a different way of playing this game every time you play. So let's play the limited game. Let's do it this way. Let's limit the game this way. And it'll give you the right, the option to play this game with different limiters and see how the game goes for you, how you enjoy that limiter. So I'm sure people are going to love that end of the time gameplay, that everything. And again, based on the fact that how you did during the game, because if you did well during the game, you should have the qualifications to stay alive, right? But if you don't have enough, boom, you're done. You didn't make the mustard and you're done, because that's, after all, the facts of life. Así que este juego pues, tendrá las limitaciones al fin, y eso acomoda el juego a como la gente la quieren jugar, más o menos, y entonces uno puede jugar el juego sin límite, otros con un poquito, otros con más limitación. Estaba pensando usar los tiempos en la Biblia donde la gente pues se mueren o hay calamidad o el diluvio de Noé, por ejemplo, y hacer esa referencia y usar esa tarjeta como un limitador, y entonces y un tipo de juego será poner todas las tarjetas limitadores al fin de las tarjetas opcionales que uno tiene de escoger, para que cuando llegamos ya al fin, el que empieza la corta cabeza tarjeta, como yo lo llamo, y esa tarjeta pues tú necesitas X, Y y Z. Si no lo tiene, pues usted está fuera del juego. Entonces empieza a cortar los jugadores en el juego con cada tarjetita al final de las tarjetas. Y es una manera de limitar el juego, y quizás es muy excitante ese momento cuando viene hasta el último. Ahí termina, este juego ya está terminando, y ya boom, 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 boom. Y como la vida, todas las cosas llegan a su fin, como este programa de hoy. So we didn't get through, as you can see, the making the game document is quite something. It's fun to do because you're realizing the game in your head and different options that you have. We still even just really got started with the game documentation. We haven't got even through the main gist of it. And again, well, sorry. But it's the main idea. If anybody wants to contact me for a game document template, you can do that. Otherwise, you can find it online. Actually, usted puede en la línea encontrar un templado o un bosquejo, que es lo que son los documentos de juego, y cambiarlo para su juego, para acomodar su juego. No lo podemos hacer hoy, el tiempo abreva, y ya la tarjeta de cortar llegó. Ya sé, esto es final, no solamente de esta sesión, sino de este parte del año de este programa, y hasta septiembre no voy a estar en vivo. Quizás pongo cosas grabadas durante el verano, quizás no, quién sabe. Yo seguiré trabajando en esta cosa, y para septiembre I want to be playing the physical game in September. Vamos a estar jugando el juego físicamente. So eso es el plan con esto. I thank you all for joining us. Estoy gracias a ustedes por estar sintonizar con nosotros, y hasta el septiembre que empezamos en vivo otra vez. Take a look at the Sabbath teaching from yesterday's 4 hours. Grab some popcorn, get some lunch, and watch that. It's really good. I tear apart the Sabbath teaching that is given, or is mainly commonly had, and it's because they're teaching the false Sabbath. Es un sábado falso que están enseñando. No están guardando el sábado como es debido. They're not keeping the Sabbath as it is supposed to. They're not teaching the Sabbath. More importantly, no están enseñando el sábado, pero ellos son los protagonistas del sábado. It's ridiculous, right? Who could have devised such a thing? ¿Quién podía haber diseñado tal cosa geniosa, no? Incredible. But take a look at that teaching anytime you like. And if you have any questions, reach out. I'm here to answer your questions. God bless you all. And you know what? Everything takes a little help and assistance From time to time, todo necesita su ayuda y cooperación de tiempo a tiempo. And now's as good a time as ever to help our ministry do its work and create great things for helping people and to keeping them from committing suicide. And the 343 initiative, you should read about that. We have solved the poverty and the hunger and homelessness issue. It's the 343 initiative, but again, if you don't help, you don't participate, the problem persists. El problema persiste si no coopera, si no ayuda, si no hace algo. Why don't you do something? You know, it's time for you to do something. Even a little thing. $1. $1 es algo que tú puedes hacer. So make it happen. Do something good today. Dios le bendiga y hasta la próxima, hasta septiembre. Take care. Stay safe. Y recuerde, cosa del pandémico no es terminado. Keep your hands washed. Pandemic is not over and there's new things coming. So keep your hands washed. Keep your kids clean. Tell them to keep themselves clean and stop being silly. Because what's coming down can be very, very, and most likely will be, much, much worse. God bless you. Keep safe. Keep us in prayer.